Straw Hut Media.
I feel very blessed to still have people, amazing people like you that want to talk to me about these kind of things. And hopefully to encourage young people, especially young people in sport who feel like they really love this game, but this game is the reason that they're not coming out. I really want to encourage them. I'm like, no, this game is the opposite.
When you think of breaking barriers in professional sports, you might not immediately think of an NFL player coming out as bisexual while still on the field. But that's exactly what R.K. Russell did. And today, he's here to share his incredible journey with us. R.K. Russell isn't just any former NFL player. He's a pioneer in the LGBTQ+ community, challenging the status quo and redefining what it means to be a queer athlete. From being drafted by the Dallas Cowboys in 2015 to coming out in 2019, R.K. has navigated a path few have dared to tread, but his story doesn't stop at football. R.K. has become a powerful advocate for LGBTQ+ representation in sports, working closely with the NFL on pride initiatives and even writing a memoir, The Yards Between Us, which is being adapted into a television series. He's also delved into mental wellness, creating The Huddle, a journal designed to help men navigate their mental health. In today's episode, we'll explore R.K.'s journey from his early days in Texas, where football was king, to the challenges of balancing his identity with his career, and how he's using his platform to create change both on and off the field. Whether you're a sports fan or not, R.K.'s story is a celebration of resilience, authenticity, and the power of living your truth.
I'm R.K. Russell, and this is Pride.
First, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. I've actually been waiting a long time to have you on.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
So for our listeners who may not be familiar with your career, who you are, all of the great things that you've done, could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, I am R.K. Russell. I'm an NFL player. I was drafted 2015 by the Dallas Cowboys. If there's any Cowboys fans listening, hello, so glad that you're here. In 2019, I came out as the first active NFL player to identify as bisexual, and it's kind of put my life on a trajectory that I never saw coming. Like, coming out for me was such a personal decision and personal choice of just trying to live my life freely and openly and pursue a career in the game that I love. Two things that I was told from a very young age could not coexist. Like, I did not see NFL players being bisexual or being queer in any way and still being accepted by sports. And I very much wanted both those things to exist. So coming out just started as that, me wanting to be who I am and be associated with the game that I love. Fast forward to now, and I've been able to still do that in a different way. You know, I work very closely with the NFL now, doing different pride initiatives. We've had Pride Night with GLAAD in the NFL the past 3 Super Bowls now. We've done National Coming Out PSA with the NFL, all these really cool things. As well, I've been able to write a book about my life experience, The Yards Between Us, my memoir that's being adapted into a TV series with Sony Pictures and Gabrielle Union, and just all these really crazy things that I never saw for myself. Like I said, just trying to come out and live my life. But amazing things really do happen on the other edge of that fear when you step into your truth, into your power.
So then growing up, I'm assuming like most people who become professional athletes, you probably lived and breathed football from an early age, I would assume.
Yes and no. I mean, my upbringing was like a little different. I grew up to a single mother, so a lot of our time was really just me in solidarity or me with my mom. She was trying to provide for me. And football is another kind of advantageous thing. It is like a privilege to just have a parent be able to like take you to practices and to be able to like feed a football player's like body. Like, this body is an expensive thing of like nutrition and time and in practice and weights and training and those things. And we didn't have a lot of those available. So I didn't get into football until later on in life, for Texans anyway. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, and I didn't get into football until like high school. Which even affected where I went to college. Like, in Texas, kids are committing to go to school for football at like sophomore year, freshman year even. I didn't play a full year of high school football till like junior year. To then all of the big colleges were already like filled up and like fully committed, which is wild. Like 15-year-olds or 14-year-olds are like making decisions of colleges they want to go to already at that point. I'm just figuring out whether I want to go to college or not. So yes and no. I say like in the grand scheme of things, football started at a young age. In the Texas scheme of things, no, there are kids that are like 8 that are like, I'm going to go to the NFL and they're like playing every weekend. And I'm just like, that's insane.
No, you're like, I'm going to play for a couple of years and then go to the NFL. I mean, that had to have been a little bit shocking for other kids in high school that are like really wanting it. And you're like, hmm.
I mean, it's yes, and football. It's weird. Like I think athletics in general is one of those very specific things where you see someone and one year that kid Johnny grows 6 inches and you're like, oh, he's going to play basketball. Or one day that kid Timmy gains 50 pounds of pure muscle out of nowhere because he's eating McDonald's every day like you and y'all are doing the same things. You're like, oh, he's going to be a football player. So, I mean, genetically, there are just things that happen. There are chips that fall where they may. And, if you have also then the desire and the work ethic and you can just stay out of trouble and stay healthy enough and get good grades. So if there are any young people listening, you also do have to participate in school. Then things happen for you. It's about kind of like staying at that level. Then that becomes important and becomes what kind of differentiates athletes. But to any young person that's like interested in sports, I say don't worry about all that. Worry about like what the sport gives you when you access it. Like for me, it was very much about like community. It was about the team. Like I grew up as a single child. Like it was about having like brothers as teammates. It was about having like mentors and father figures as like coaches. It was about that sense of community and all the other things that came are amazing. Like I am so grateful for those things. I did work for those things. But I loved sports at that moment because of what it gave me at that moment, that love, that community, that structure, those values. And I think that is something that all young people can really use, especially queer kids who often feel isolated, who often feel alone, who often feel ostracized. Um, and if that is available to you and that's something you want and you enjoy having like sports, I say go for it.
What was that like then for you? Because you were getting so much, I would say, like, we're going to call those like community benefits, right? From football beyond playing in the NFL, which is like a huge dream for so many young men. But what was it like balancing your professional football career, especially once it started to get serious, and your personal journey of coming out, even if that was internalized? What was that like for you?
I mean, it was tough. I think in my mind, I rationalized a lot of it. I think I think my coping mechanism for a lot of my life, not even just in terms of my identity and my sport, but really to move through this society and specifically like this country as a person of color, first and foremost, has been a lot about survival and about compartmentalizing and coping. Um, there's a lot of experience that I have as a young black man in this country where I walk in a room and I'm constantly surveying, I'm constantly coding myself, I'm constantly, showing parts of myself and my identity and presenting things that I know are going to be more acceptable for the people in that space that are going to give me the highest chance of being accepted and being welcomed and not being seen as whether it be a threat or whether it be an outcast or whether it be a problem or whether it be, whatever other people's stereotypes and thoughts and prejudices are, that's constantly already something I'm doing as like a young black person in this country. You add on the layer of identity to that. You add on like this, something that at times can be very toxic, this sports culture. And it's just something like that I naturally integrated into within sports. It's like, oh, you want me to be manly to be a football player? Well, done. Like I've been coding myself already so much in this world. Like I will continue to do that. That's something I naturally have been doing. So I didn't really see it as like a huge issue for a lot of my life. I just saw it as kind of me growing into like the person I was supposed to be, which is so twisted because it's not. It's really limiting who you can be and who you're meant to be. It's really putting parameters on your own growth and stunting the actual self actualization that you can have as a young person. But I wasn't coming to any of those big decisions. I was just like, oh, this is what you want. I can be that. So that was kind of a lot of my experience through sports. And I think a lot of sport is also teaching kids to sacrifice. I was taught that you had to give up your social life. You had to give up partying. You had to give up, the late nights for the early mornings. You had to give up kind of like the relationships for the late training sessions in the games. You had to give up these things. So to me, this was another thing I was giving up. What I didn't realize is you should never feel like you need to give up a part of yourself for anything, not for a game, not for a profession, not for a career, not for another person. You should never feel like you are sacrificing a part of you for something or someone. Um, Once again, not realizations I had at that time. In my life, I was used to sacrificing. I was used to being watered in taking the form of anything that I was put into in any situation I was put into. Um, so my experience looking back on it was suffocating, stifling, um, controlling, oppressive, all of these really big things. And it's interesting. You don't know how bad it is when you're in it. Like before coming out, I thought that was my norm. That was my baseline for life. And it was so low, and I had no idea like how good life could get. Like it does sound like a cliche once people say it, but when you really get on the other side of it, you're like, oh, I was miserable, or you're like, oh, that was depression, like, oh, that was unhealthy, that was toxic. Um, but these are things you don't know because it's what you're used to.
Do you feel like then when you decided to come out, you had all of that, the pressure that was kind of put upon you by being a professional athlete. And then when you come out, you kind of became a poster child, I guess you would say, for queerness in sports, if that is in professional football for sure. And that kind of launched you into becoming this advocate for LGBTQ plus representation in sports. I would imagine somewhat involuntarily, right? Like you came out and now that is kind of what you are. And there obviously is pressure coming then from the LGBTQ plus community to be this thing and to be this champion for these things in this space that, like you just described, you were already having to fit a different role and a different image to fit into that. And now you have this other one that you have to kind of do at the same time. I think of it almost like we've had a couple of people on the podcast who are very involved in religious organizations and then also queer advocates. And it's this balancing act that's really challenging. Did that put more pressure on you then to also be this other thing now for this other group of people?
Yes. Yes, definitely. But I will say I also just acknowledge like my privilege in the situation. I know that a lot of people come out and they don't get articles written about them. They don't get the support of a league or of teammates or even their family and friends or random people online. A lot of people come out and they lose family, they lose jobs, they lose opportunities, they lose their safety. So when the pressure was put on me and I did feel kind of like thrust into this position, I took a second also to acknowledge my own privilege and to be grateful in that because, this is still something that is very special and was like celebrated for me in my life. So I always kind of, when things get a little crazy or I feel overwhelmed, I always kind of go back to that as like a grounding space for me. And then I'll say that it was also like a big encouragement to learn. It was big encouragement to like fill these shoes and to be the best representation that I could be, to be the best version of like myself that I could be. I believe in the National Football League, in the history of the National Football League, there's been 16, I believe, players to come out in the history of the league. Um, that's insane. So like you said, it's kind of this instant role that you take on, but I can honestly say that all of us have contributed in our own way. Not everyone is a vocal leader. Not everyone is the best writer. Not everyone is the best speaker. Not everyone, feels comfortable speaking on different topics. We all come from different backgrounds, different situations, different cultures, beliefs. Like we all are different pieces of the same puzzle. It's about being comfortable in the piece that you are and what you bring to it and just being that the best that you can. If that's immediately in the people around you, if that's in your own actions and in your own life work, if that's in your legacy, if that's in being more vocal, being out there, be confident in that, be comfortable in that, own that. Like you don't have to be more than what you are. Like that's not what this is. That's not what the mission is. The mission is to come out and be you and be comfortable and confident in you, to have fun, to be joyous, to be loved and allow love into your life. Like at the end of the day, like we get one shot at this that I know of, and you got to live it to the fullest of your capability and enjoy doing that. So you want to do that, but yeah, it was a lot of pressure, but it was a lot of encouragement. There's a lot of gratitude. I feel very blessed to be celebrated. I feel very blessed to still have people, amazing people like you, that want to talk to me about these kind of things, and hopefully to encourage young people, especially young people in sport, who feel like they really love this game, but this game is the reason that they're not coming out. I really want to encourage them. I like, no, this game is the opposite. Like, this game will support people that are different because that's what it's built on. Like, all of these teams are built on diversity. All these teams are better because people are different and they're coming together to love each other and to love this game.
It does seem like in the last 10 years, with your coming out and with athletes in other leagues like the MLB and hockey and all of the different professional sports that are really popular in the United States, that there has been this huge shift. And like you described it, now there are glad pride nights at the Super Bowl, which is huge and would never have happened, 20 years ago. This month we participated in Pride Night with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and we had some time. It was super fun. I was so impressed. They invited us out to be part of their parade. And at first I was like, is the parade just going to be me? And I'm an Arizona native. So I'm a Diamondbacks fan because I was a kid when they became a team. So we got to participate in their parade, and there were probably 500 or 600 people, marching around the Chase Field, which was awesome. But we had some time to talk to their ERG that heads up Pride and a bunch of other events, and to kind of have some transparency in talking to them. And they talked about how it's still hard. Like, the Diamondbacks want to have a Pride night, but there are still rules, right? Like, no drag queens, no things like that, that can't be as prominent in, I guess you'd say, like, in the night as one would want them to be. So there's still like some fear as to like, okay, we're going to do the Pride night, but we're going to do like 60 or 70% as opposed to like 100%, and let's bring out a ton of drag queens to do this amazing thing and make it huge and queer and fun. What changes do you think still need to happen in the NFL and beyond, in professional sports in general, in terms of being more inclusive and supportive of not only LGBTQ athletes, because like you said, there really aren't that many who are out, but also fans and the community?
Yeah, I mean, I will give credit to all the leagues. Like, the conversation has shifted so much. I can remember even before my coming out, and even after, where the conversation was a lot about like, well, once a player comes out, we'll do all the right things. Like, we're just waiting for the players, and I'm so glad to see like that is no longer the case. Like, we understand that inclusion and proactive acts of inclusion and diversity, and like conscious acts of inclusion and diversity, is what breeds the comfortability and the acceptance for players to come out and for players to just continue to be out and to live life in sports. Like, I'm so glad that we're making that shift. Um, but there is this lack of exposure of the to the broad diversity of what the LGBTQ plus community is. We are, I believe, more versed in what it means to be a gay man. I think we are less versed, especially in the sports community, of what it means to be a bisexual person. Way less versed in what it means to be a trans person, let alone a trans athlete. What it means to be a drag performer, what it means to be, all of these things, an asexual person, an intersex individual. Like, there's the LGBTQ plus community is so vast and so beautiful and so diverse. But the sports knowledge in for the sports community is not there yet. So I think it's also continuing to grow and educate and to expose the sports world to the diversity of the LGBTQ plus community, to continue to integrate LGBTQ plus people in positions of power in the sports world, whether it be positions of executives, whether it be in coaching, whether it be in players, whether it be all of these things, marketing, promotion, like, to continue to platform us and to seek us and give us seats at the table so that we can educate, so that we can inform, so that we can be the people making the decisions on behalf of us, because we are the ones that are knowledgeable in our community. I think those are the kind of the next steps and the key components and things that I'm seeing happen as well. But it's really about consistency. It's really about consistency in time and in being proactive. Like, we need to get ahead of this, because the fear for me is that sports will be used in the opposite way, that sports will be used to target the LGBTQ plus community. We're seeing it a bit, not a bit, we're seeing it a lot actually with trans athletes and trans youth. And that is the opposite of what sports is meant to do. Sports is not meant to attack people. Sports is not meant to make, especially children, feel fearful or invalid, or like they don't belong. So we definitely need to get ahead of this. sports is a place where everyone's supposed to be feel welcome. It's literally supposed to be like you pick that ball and you want to play, you can be on this team, you can work with us. We invite you in. We love you and we support you and let's do this together. Like that's the message of what sports is.
That's a lot to carry, right? Like that's a lot of, I guess you'd say, like pressure, in that you are so entrenched, as a lot of pro athletes are that are LGBTQ, in moving that marker forward. Are there ever times when you're just like, I need to like disappear. I need a break. I just need to like curl up and, I don't know, watch Netflix and get away. And if so, like what are the things that you are able to do to maintain your own mental and emotional well-being, especially online? Because there's a lot of feedback from the world, and sports is very straight still, even if it has a pride night, right? It's very straight. What are the things that you do for yourself to kind of protect yourself and maintain your own mental and emotional well-being, especially in the face of like lots of public attention?
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone needs a break, whether you are the face of a movement or advocating, or whether you are working a 9 to 5 and providing for you or a family or whatever your situation is. The human experience is exhausting. Me, myself, I am a huge advocate of unplug, unwind, reset. Like my social media, I have limited a lot of my interactions. I don't think you can comment on my posts unless you follow me for a certain amount of time. I know you can't message me unless I've messaged you first or interacted or followed you first. My followers are very limited. Words are filtered also on my account. So even if you do follow me, you can't post certain words on my accounts. My screen time is also limited and locked. My social media does not lock at a certain time. It also then locks at a certain time. So I mean, I've put in like rigorous amounts of kind of like boundaries for myself in terms of social media, because yeah, it's triggering when I'm just living my life or trying to fight the good fight or even just trying to enjoy myself, and I pick up my phone and I see hate or I feel an attack or I invite these unwarranted things. So I do everything I can to avoid that. And then I'm a huge advocate also in my own mental wellness and resources. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I'm a huge advocate for journaling. I've recently created my own mental wellness resource in terms of journaling. I have a men's health journal that has just come out. It's called the Huddle Men's Journal. Um, the call out for the men's journal does not specifically mean it's only for men. Anyone can use this journal. We wanted to specify men because we realized that men are at the center of the mental health crisis, i.e., men are the least likely to seek mental wellness assistance and the most likely to then be at harm due to mental health crisis. So that's kind of the call out to encourage men to use it. So I'm a huge advocate for journaling. I feel like it's impossible to let someone know what is going on with you if you are not first in tune what is going on with yourself. So that is a huge tool for me in my own life and something that I encourage everyone to do as well.
It is Pride Month. We're recording this during Pride Month, and it is also Men's Health Awareness or Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. I think it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. And that becomes kind of a weaponized thing on social media, where if you're doing celebratory Pride content, you'll often see comments that say like, it's not Pride Month, it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. It's interesting then that you have the release of the Huddle, and it comes at a great time, really, to kind of, I guess you'd say, reclaim that, right? And also be like, you're right, it is. And let's talk about that. So I'm really curious, what was the inspiration to create the Huddle? And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the significance of its name, because I'm sure it has a lot of significance to you.
Oh my gosh, yes. The inspiration, especially kind of like at this time, like you say, my coming out journey and my mental wellness journey are one and the same. Like these two things are so tightly woven together. I can begin to pry them apart even if I wanted to. I battled with depression, like clinical diagnosed depression, my whole life. I continue also to fight the battle against depression. I've also been a bisexual man my whole life. And I noticed that in times where I've neglected to accept my own identity, when I put myself in repetitive states of self hatred, that my mental health has also suffered. Those are also the times where I've neglected my mental wellness the most. Those are also the times where I put myself in the most harm, whether it be self inflicted or outwardly afflicted. So those two have always been a married topic for me, have always been together in my journey. And coming out was the first time where I actually took my mental wellness and really prioritized it. Like the healing of those two things has also been married together. So the journal in Pride Month or Mental Health Awareness Month and Pride Month, to me, that didn't happen by mistake. These 2 months are not the same thing by mistake. These 2 months are the same by design. These two things are supposed to be married together. Um, so that's my personal touch with it. Um, Journaling for me in my own personal experience, like I said, it has been a huge blessing for me to understand myself, to discover both the obstacles, the challenges, the shortcomings of who I am, as well as the strengths, the accomplishments, the achievements, and the celebrations of who I am. I would not be who I am if I did not sit down and take the time to study, to reflect, and to love myself in that way. So I'm a huge advocate for journaling. I have a men's huddle journal with me down on my desk. I am almost through this one. I'll have to use another one soon. um, and the Huddle Journal was really my desire to encourage more men to journal. I have talked to men of all sexualities and all identities about journaling. And regardless of how they've identified, the comment was always like, well, I don't know how to journal, or I don't know where to start, or I've just never, I've never done it. No one I know does it. So this was my kind of like love letter to men about, hey, you don't have to know how. There's no perfect way to journal. There's no right way. This is a guided journal. There are prompts. There's a section from me about what I do, what helps me, tips, suggestions, a guide, but also a section where it's like, F it, do what you want, do what's right for you. Um, I think it's important. It's important to just have a place where you feel safe, where you don't feel like judged by anyone or anything. The hope is that you can understand enough to then hopefully communicate with someone else, that you can sit down 30 minutes with yourself, figure out what's going on, and then go out into the world and explain it to those that you love and get outward support. The word huddle is because to me, a huddle is where I felt most supported. Like in the game of football, life is crazy. Like the game is crazy, the sideline is crazy, the stadium is crazy, people are rooting for you. People are rooting for their own fantasy team. People, you're getting hurt. People are booing. Like it is chaotic. In that huddle between plays, regardless of what that scoreboard says, regardless of how bad you feel, you are with 10 other men who are there to pick you up and support you and help you through whatever you go through. I want the huddle to journal to feel like that. I want it to feel like no matter what you're going through in life, no matter how crazy it is out there in the real world, you are here, whether it be with me, whether it be with your family, or whether it be just with you and your thoughts. You are with someone who supports you and loves you no matter what and will pick you up, and you can go on to the next play, to the next day, to the next game, to whatever's next in your life. So that is why I'm super passionate about it. That's what it means to me. And I hope that everyone, even if it's not journaling, even if it's not this journal, I hope that everyone has something that works for them in their own mental wellness.
I have a gratitude journal on my desk, but I think that is something that specifically straight men don't really know how to start, right? Men don't really talk about what's going on inside. So I'm curious what kind of prompts and activities you did include to hope to foster that and get people moving in that direction.
Well, I also realized that like a lot of people that are associated with me or follow me before coming out come from the world of like sports and from the world of kind of like physical health and wellness, which to me, I'm like the fact that physical health and wellness and mental health and wellness haven't been more closely linked for men, I also feel like is a miss, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I'm like, these two things should be closely linked together. But I kind of started from that place. So there is also like a more, um, I guess I don't know how to put it, like physical kind of markers. Like you do log how much sleep you're getting, you log how your nutrition is, you log your activity level for the day, you log your social level. Yeah, so you can make that log, and you also start with somewhere that's kind of familiar. Like I know guys that log their workouts, I know guys that log what they're eating, I know guys that log like sleep quality. That's journey to me. I'm like, if you're doing all that as a man already, you're already kind of doing a little bit of something that I consider journaling. Just kind of take it that one step further and go to kind of the mental emotional. So we have all that. And then we have a thought log. Like a question here that I have is write about a time you felt inspired or motivated. Like, these also don't have to be heavy. These don't have to be negative. If anything, it's something that should create positive thought patterns. I know a lot of men that are used to negative criticism and critique, whether it be from their upbringing, whether it be just how men are taught to communicate with each other, whether it be become their own internal voice. Like, there's a lot of prompts that are just built to break that down, to start a positive dialogue in your mind. Then there's always a follow-up question. This one is, how can you harness this inspiration to fuel your goals? There's a format also in here that like wants to make this feel goal motivated. That I know men that are like, if this is going to help me be better at A, B, and C, I don't want to do it. So there's a little bit of that as well. Like, I want people to feel like they're getting something out of this. I want people to feel like, this is something that's going to help better you in some way. So there's a lot that's in here. Like I said, there's over, I think, 180 prompts in here. There's a free thought section with pages in the back if you want to just write and just go.
Jot stuff down.
Yeah, just jot things down. We really took, I think it took like almost a year of just thought and going back and forth to really craft this. And I'm super proud of this. The company's Bear and Fig that I work with to get this done, they really put so much time and so much effort and so much trust in me to like get this done. Just really, really proud of it. Really beautiful.
Before all of this, when you were going through coming out and your football career and all of those things, was journaling part of your life even back then?
Yes. Oh my God. So I fancy myself a writer now, but the first kind of like thing I ever remember writing was really in a journal as a kid. I wrote a piece of poetry or like a letter. I lost my father very young, and I kind of remember writing a letter to God about asking the question like why it had happened. It was kind of my first experience with grief as like a young person. And from that moment forward, I remember just writing about the big questions in life, the questions as a young person like that were just beyond me. Questions now that I still kind of can't answer as an adult, but we're just healthy as a young person, like get on my mind, things that I was maybe embarrassed to ask adults or didn't have the vocabulary to ask adults. So journaling has always been a part of my life. Back then, it was just very more personal and very more much like soul bearing and like heart bearing. Now, being an adult, it is kind of like a little more. There's a little more of a practical side for me. Bills happen, life happens, relationships happen. So there's a little more of that function too. But journaling has always been a part of my life.
So, what advice would you have or give someone who is completely new to journaling? Maybe they're just learning about it right now on this podcast, even if they're about to start their journey with the huddle or really any journey. Maybe they just have a piece of paper and they're going to start. But what advice would you give them?
Oh gosh, my advice would be to start small and start scared. Like, you do not have to open a journal and crack out 2 pages a day. You do not have to even journal every day. Like, come up with a routine that feels good for you. Come up with a routine that feels like you can do it consistently. I think when I started out journaling, I was doing every other day. I was doing like half pages. Just do something that feels consistent. Do something that feels bearable for you. Do something that doesn't feel super overwhelming. I also say another tip is to tie it to an action that you do in your schedule of whatever consistency you want to do it. So for me, I'm a huge coffee advocate. I do journal every day now, and I also need my morning cup of coffee every day. So once I hit brew on that morning cup, I'm cracking open this journal and I'm getting my thought log started. So that's kind of my mental cue every day of hit brew on my coffee, put my cup under, crack open the journal, read the question. Like I said, give myself a little time to think about it. It's done brewing, grab it, I sit down and I start going. So when you tie it to kind of an action that you want to kind of keep that consistency or that schedule, to me, that's kind of the best way to stay on that track and just stick with it. Like I said, you might not feel super different in the first day. You might not feel super different in the first week, but if you stay consistent, that's the best way to do it. And I really do believe that the key of journaling also is to not keep it all in. Like, the huddle is to eventually get it back to that huddle, to that team. Like, we're trying to get to a point where you understand it so you can share it, so that you can communicate it with those in your life, so that you can get that outward support as well. So also just keep that in mind when you go on this journey.
So, I mean, the huddle is kind of your big, I would say, like, professional step forward into mental health and men's mental health, right? It's your first real product in the space, I guess you would say, or your venture into the space. Do you feel like this is it? Do you have other plans for the huddle? Does it stop here or is there more?
It definitely doesn't stop here. I mean, 32, this is the first thing. I can't stop. No, mental wellness, I'm super passionate about it. I think as my knowledge also of mental wellness evolves, the way that I want to help and contribute and use my platform will evolve. The huddle is the first of many iterations of my help in this space. And, I want it to grow because I also, like I said, the goal of the huddle is to get to that community. I would love for this to grow into community. I would love for this to grow into retreats. I would love for this to grow into, something where I can help and continue to provide like that space, especially for men who at times feel disjointed. I was talking with my partner the other day, and specifically just about like my college buddies and stuff and why sports is so huge for a lot of straight men is because outside of sports and outside of bars and gambling and drinking and all these other things and nightlife, there's not a lot of places where men can come together and just be in community outside of sports. So I definitely want a space where men can come and be in community and we can talk about life. Like I said, it doesn't have to be all about feelings. It doesn't have to be all about emotions, but it can be about life because life is happening to all of us. And there are 8 billion of us here on this planet. So we're not meant to do life alone. Community is a huge part of being a human. It's a huge part of the human experience. And men need to be in community with each other as well, in healthy community with each other.
That's very important. I can see how something like this could easily become, a community online that grows into more and more and more. So that's really exciting. And hopefully it's something that, like you said, it doesn't have to be just men can use the huddle as part of just their daily routine after their cup of coffee to get through the craziness that is life or sports or what have you in any unique life. So everyone can get a copy of it at baronfic.com, correct?
Yes, correct.
Great. And we'll link it in the show notes. And where can everyone, if they're not following you, where can they connect with you?
Yes, you can connect with me on Instagram, Threads, X, formerly known as Twitter, at RK Relentless. I also have a personal website with all of my events and things I'm doing, rkrelentless.com. And yeah, that's me. Please connect with me if you can. You want to reach out, please do. I'm always looking, like I said, to talk to people in healthy community. I think it's super important that we stay connected and that we give each other love and respect at every turn.
Thank you very, very much for coming on the podcast today. I appreciate it. I know you're very busy in Pride Month.
Thank you for having me. I love these talks. I really appreciate it.
Pride is a production of Straw Hut Media. If you like the show, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Then, follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, the app formerly known as Twitter, and Snapchat @Pride, and tune in weekly for more episodes. Be sure to share this episode with your friends and subscribe for more stories from amazing queer people. If you'd like to connect with me, you can follow me everywhere at Levi Chambers. Pride is produced by me, Levi Chambers, Maggie Bowles, Ryan Tillotson, and Brandon Marlowe, and edited by Daniel Ferreira.